Good morning, LPES. So I am starting today's Friday feeling from a very strange place. I just got to school. It's Thursday morning, but I thought this was the perfect chance for us to talk about one of my favorite ideas regarding our feelings. So I thought we'd start out here and then I'm going to move inside in a few minutes. Let me step on out. Some beautiful loud birds this morning. So one of the things that I always like us to think about when we're talking about our feelings and our emotions, hold on, let me get you set up over here. Let's see if that works. There we go. A little crooked, that's okay. Whenever we're talking about feelings and emotions is that they're like the weather, right? And the weather doesn't stay the same day in and day out. It changes all the time. And one of the ways that sorry, I lost my train of thought. Someone drove by. Just like our feelings change all the time, the weather also doesn't always stay the same. So yesterday was rainy, it was windy, it was a yucky day. When we left school at the end of the day yesterday, it felt like it was nighttime, even though it was only 3:30, 4 o'clock. So just like the weather changes, like today, it is a beautiful, sunny, blue sky kind of day. A few clouds, but still sunny. Just like the weather changes, this isn't working. There we go. Our feelings change also if we just give it time. Whenever you're feeling those uncomfortable emotions, whenever we're feeling anger or frustration or sadness, if we give it time, if we're able to try and keep ourselves calm for a few hours, a few minutes, a few days sometimes, then eventually those feelings shift. They change, just like the weather does. So I thought I would take this beautiful morning to kind of go over that concept with you, that idea with you one more time, because I think it's so important. If we don't try and force our emotions to change, then eventually they will on their own. It's when we try and force them to change, when we try and push away anger or push away sadness, that sometimes it makes it worse and it makes them stay around a little bit longer. All right. Even though it's beautiful out this morning, it is kind of cold. So I'm going to go inside and we'll continue our Friday feeling from in there. All right, LPES, I'm back, and I am in another different location from where I normally am. You can see right now I am in the gym. We're set up for an assembly that's going to happen later today, but by the time you're seeing this, will have already happened. So I thought we'd come into the gym because I wanted to use some props today to talk to you a little bit more about our feelings, our emotions, and also our thoughts. When we talk about the word mindfulness, which you might hear me say a lot, but it can still be a hard thing for us to understand what it is Mrs. Heffler means when she talks about mindfulness. When I'm talking about mindfulness, I'm talking about trying to get our mind to focus on just one particular thing at a time. A lot of times our mind has a million different thoughts that bounce through it very quickly. And in fact, I'm going to show you a little example of what I mean about all of those thoughts kind of bouncing through our mind right now. I have with me this bag full of ping pong balls. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a bit of a mess and I'm going to let them out on the floor in here. And each of these ping pong balls represents a different thought that might be bouncing through your mind, even as you're watching this video. Maybe you're thinking about what you're going to do after school today. Maybe you're thinking about that homework assignment you forgot to do last night. Maybe you're thinking about the grade you got on your report card the other week and how you're going to try and pull that up. Maybe you're thinking about a fight you had with a friend at lunch. Whatever it might be. And it might be happy things too. I feel like I used a lot of negative examples. But maybe it's thinking about practice for a sport or something that you have after school today. Whatever it might be. These thoughts can kind of interrupt our brain a lot and make it hard for us to focus, make it hard for us, one of them escaped, make it hard for us to feel calm, make it hard for us to feel in control of ourselves, because if we have all these thoughts bouncing around in our mind, it can be overwhelming for both kids and grown-ups alike. So I'm going to show you what it looks like when we have all of those thoughts kind of freely bouncing in and out of our brain. I'm going to do that right now. Here we go. Let me move you to the floor. Okay. All right, guys. So I'm going to let these out. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. So, oh my goodness, I gotta clean this up. So, if you look, our thoughts have bounced all over the place. They kind of made a mess of things, and Mrs. Heffler is gonna have to get some special cleaners to help her clean that up. In fact, I'll be right back. Oh, I have some special helpers here that I borrowed from Before Care who are gonna help me clean up all of these ping pong balls. You guys ready?
Yeah!
All right, go ahead. Was a lot of fun. Thank you to my helpers who helped pick these up pretty quickly. So as I was saying before, each one of these balls is like a thought that's in our mind. It bounces around. If they're all happening at once, it makes a really big mess. In fact, I just saw another one. Hold on. Okay. Hopefully we found them all. But when we practice mindfulness, and mindfulness is stuff like when we're doing our deep breathing, when we're doing a body scan and trying to focus on how our body's feeling, when we're doing an emotions check-in to just figure out what we're feeling that day, those are all mindfulness practices. What that's doing is it's making it, sorry, my computer's slipping. Today's Friday feeling is kind of funny. I feel like we're a bit all over the place. Mrs. Heffler's mind is a bit like all these ping pong balls this morning, I think. When we're practicing mindfulness, it makes it so that instead of all of those dozens and dozens of thoughts that are bouncing around making a big mess, we're just focusing on one particular thing. And other thoughts might come in and out of our brain as we're focusing on our breathing, as we're focusing on doing a body scan, as we're focusing on checking in with our senses. But it makes it a lot harder for those balls to continue bouncing around, those thoughts to continue bouncing around in our head, because we're focusing on just the one. And cleaning up after one is a lot easier than cleaning up after an entire bag's worth. So, why don't we practice one last mindfulness thing together today, and then we might end with a little something different this morning. So wherever you are, like I'm in the gym, I want you to just be seated, feeling nice and comfortable. Let's start by taking 3 deep breaths in. You can breathe in through your nose or your mouth. It doesn't really matter to me, but I want to make sure that those breaths are nice and deep. So we're not raising our shoulders. We're breathing down into our bellies instead. So take a deep breath in and let it out. Do another one of those. Breathe in and out. Last one for me. Breathe in and out. All right, I want us to do a senses check-in. And so we've done these before, we've done them a few times this year. All it means is that we're taking a moment to kind of do some deep breathing, and we focus on one thing we can hear, one thing we can see, one thing we can feel, one thing we can smell, and one thing we can taste. So let's start with an easy one. Let's do sight. So again, we're taking those nice, slow, deep breaths in, and I want you to focus on something you can see right ahead of you, whether it's on my screen here or whether it's in your classroom, right in your eyesight. We're not turning around and looking. Taking those deep breaths and focusing in on that one particular object. Let's take another deep breath in, and this time I want you to focus on something you can feel. Maybe it's the chair supporting you or the floor supporting you if you're sitting on the floor like I am. Maybe it's an article of your clothing. Maybe it's your hair on your skin. Acknowledging it, noticing it, letting it go. Let's focus on something you can hear. Maybe it's a few things. Maybe it's one thing. For me, I can hear the kids over in the cafeteria because this is before school, so I hear some of our friends over in the cafeteria for Boys and Girls Club. Let that go. Let's go ahead and focus in on something you can smell. If you can't smell anything, that's okay. It's all part of the exercise. And last but not least, breathe in and out, and focusing on something that you can taste. And again, if you can't taste anything, you haven't eaten anything or drank anything in a while, that's okay too. What I hope that we feel is, instead of all of those bunches of thoughts bouncing around in our mind, hopefully by doing, one of them escaped, oh my goodness. Hopefully by doing our senses check-in, we're focusing on just the one. Focusing on just whatever it was that Mrs. Heffler was asking us to focus on in those moments. Other thoughts are going to come into our mind and pass through as we're trying to focus on that one thing. And that's okay. It's totally normal. We can't expect ourselves to be perfect and completely clear our head of other thoughts. But what we can do is choose not to focus on them. Choose not to follow those thoughts wherever they go. Instead, coming back to whatever it is that you and I are talking about, you and I are focusing on. Last scene change of today's Friday feeling. Now we're back in my office, or in my office for the first time today. We haven't actually been in here yet. We're outside, we're in the gym, and now we're here. We are going to wrap up with a little read aloud story. This is one of my favorite books. It's called Grumpy Monkey by Suzanne Lang and illustrated by Max Lang. And I like this book because it kind of ties into all the things that we've been talking about today. It ties into our emotions. It ties into giving our emotions some time to go and change. And it ties into trying to be a little more mindful, trying to calm ourselves, even when we're feeling those big emotions or when we're feeling a lot of different thoughts bouncing around in our head. This book is all about a monkey who is grumpy. You might be familiar with this story. As you listen to it, I want you to remind yourselves that all of us are grumpy sometimes. All of us have bad days. And it's using skills like mindfulness, it's using skills like deep breathing, it's using skills like reminding ourselves that our feelings are like the weather, and eventually they're going to change, just like they do in this book with our friend, the Grumpy Monkey. I hope you enjoy.
One wonderful day, Jim Pansy woke to discover that nothing was right. The sun was too bright, the sky was too blue, and the bananas were too sweet. Jim was confused. What's going on? Maybe you're grumpy, suggested Norman from next door. I'm not grumpy, Jim insisted. On his walk, he met Marabou. Jim's grumpy, Norman told Marabou. Why are you grumpy, Jim? Asked Marabou. It's such a wonderful day. Grumpy? Me? I am not grumpy, said Jim. But look at how you're standing, Marabou said. It's true, said Norman. You're all hunched. So Jim loosened up. Then he ran into Lemur. Jim's grumpy, Norman told Lemur. Why are you grumpy, Jim? Asked Lemur. It's such a wonderful day. Grumpy? Me? I'm not grumpy, said Jim. Your eyebrows look grumpy, said Lemur. It's true, said Norman. They're all bunched up. So Jim raised his brow. Then he tripped over Snake. Oh no, said Norman. That's the last thing you need when you're feeling so grumpy. Grumpy? Me? I am not grumpy, said Jim. Then why that frown, said Snake. I think it's because he tripped over you, Norman whispered to Snake. So Jim put on a smile. Finally, Jim looked happy, but he didn't feel happy inside. Everyone wanted Jim to enjoy this wonderful day. You should sing with us, said the birds. Jim didn't feel like singing. You should swing with us, said the monkeys. Jim didn't feel like swinging. You should roll with us, said the zebras. Jim didn't feel like rolling. You should stroll with us, said the peacocks. Jim didn't feel like strolling. You should lie in the grass. You should stomp your feet. You should take a bath and make a splash. You should hug someone. You should laugh. You should take a nap. You should eat old meat. Or some honey. You should jump up and down. You should sit in the sun. You should dance. But Jim didn't feel like doing any of that. Why are you grumpy, Jim? Asked the others. It's such a wonderful day. I'm not grumpy, shouted Jim as he beat his chest. And he stormed off. Jim felt sorry, a little sorry for shouting at everyone, but mostly sorry for himself. I guess I am grumpy, Jim sighed, and just as he was starting to feel really sad, he came upon Norman. Norman was slumped. His eyebrows were bunched up, and he was frowning. What's the matter? Are you grumpy? Asked Jim. No, I danced with Porcupine, said Norman. Are you okay? Asked Jim. It hurts, but I'll probably feel better soon enough, said Norman. Are you still grumpy? Yes, said Jim, but I'll probably feel better soon enough too. For now, I need to be grumpy. It's a wonderful day to be grumpy, said Norman. Jim agreed. And he already felt a little bit better.
Okay, my friends. So that concludes this very kind of silly, kind of all over the place Friday feeling. A little bit different than our normal ones where I just sit on my couch or sit in my office the entire time. So hopefully it was a little entertaining for you. I hope you all have a wonderful Friday and a fantastic weekend. And remember, LPES, as always, stay kind. I'll see you all next week.